What's good, everybody? It's your boy Big Nate. Welcome to Big Nate's Book Reviews, home of the best book reviews. And today we are reviewing The Bell Jar by SYLVIA Plath. So I got my doobie right here. It is ready to be sparked. And today we smoking this one for SYLVIA Plath. So if you got your doobie at home, go ahead and spark that, and then we finna just jump right into it. So this is going to be part of my series where I read my viewers' top TBRs book that I web scraped from Goodreads. So go ahead and check that book out, or check that video out if you haven't already. But today, this is where we really get this shit. The book reviews is where we really get shit cracking. When we kick back, light the doobie, really do a deep dive into the book. So like I said, today we're going to be talking about The Bell Jar, which was published in 1963, actually under a pseudonym of Victoria Lucas. So that's kind of interesting. But okay, real quick, I should just give a little thing. I'm gonna go into some of the background of SYLVIA Plath. There's a lot of like legend lore around SYLVIA Plath and her life and her history and her sort of like biography. If you don't want to know anything about SYLVIA Plath's life, just go ahead and skip forward, but I'm gonna break it down for you right now. So many of us probably already know. I actually did not know until like halfway through the book or something, but SYLVIA Plath, actually a month after The Bell Jar was published, ultimately decided to take her own life. And I didn't know about the way she did it until actually very recently, which is pretty gnarly actually, I'm not gonna lie. But what she did was while her kids were sleeping in the other room, she like taped up, she sealed all the different like cracks in the house, all the different openings in the house with towels and clothes and stuff like that. And then she basically like shoved her head deep into an oven and took her own life via carbon monoxide poisoning. So again, her children were in the other room and she taped everything up. But I'm pretty sure this is true. The person downstairs from her, I think, actually got knocked out from carbon monoxide poisoning, or not poisoning, but got knocked out from carbon monoxide, which is not funny, but a little bit, let's be honest. But anyway, so yeah, SYLVIA Plath actually had a very tragic end to her life, and I think that I didn't know about this either. What's particularly tragic, I think, especially in light of the ending of this book, which this won't give what I'm about to say won't spoil the ending because it could mean anything in a lot of different contexts. But I think it's the way she went is particularly tragic after the end of this book, because she had, like I said, she took her own life. But after only a few days after she was prescribed with antidepressants, like clinical antidepressants, like monoamine inhibitor. What I actually should know this. I have like a whole neuroscience thing and have taken like a whole class on like. But anyway. It was like a real clinical antidepressant, and unfortunately those things can take a few weeks to actually fully kick in. So I just personally just can't help think what would have happened if a few weeks were able to pass by and see how SYLVIA Plath's life would have turned out in that situation. But anyway, that's all just kind of by way of background. Obviously, SYLVIA Plath is really big into poetry too. She's won multiple poetry awards, multiple literary scholarships, stuff like that. And that actually leads me... Oh, by the way, too, this was crazy. Sorry. One more thing. So the antidepressants came after the fact of... Because she had been going through like electroshock therapy. Like that's like some One Flew Over the Cuckoo Nest type shit, bro. Like, I don't know. It's crazy how that happened. It's... Honestly, her whole life is just... the way so many things have been played out is just very sad. But anyway, let's get into the book, which, by the way, is largely autobiographical. I don't know the extent to which it is, but I know many of these things that happened had truly happened to the author SYLVIA Plath. So, The Bell Jar. It starts with this girl, woman, lady. I hate how there's no name for that. Like, what do you call a female that is 19 years old? She's a 19-year-old undergraduate girl, lady, whatever, who is in New York because she has won like some literary award where they fly her out. She's going to be chilling for a month, networking with a bunch of authors, going to these events, doing all these things. And it's during her time there that she begins to realize she is suffering from the early signs of like a full-scale depression, and she describes it kind of like her time there. So she has this exhaustion and this apathy, and she's just like not feeling anything. And there's this part where she's laying in bed and she says she feels sad and tired because she's thinking about all the things she should be doing. She should be going to the networking, she should be going to lunches, going to all these events, all these dinners. She's not doing any of that just because of her state of mind. And she feels sad and tired that she's not doing that. And then she says she feels even worse because she's not doing the things that she shouldn't be doing. Because there's a character in this book who she's like running off with dudes, she's getting like sloppy drunk, ditching some of the events. So, but she's not even doing that. She's not even like living on the wild side or whatever. So she's just completely apathetic to everything. And this is kind of when you realize something's kind of up with her mentally. And on top of that, she is like hyper fixated. Nothing can really elicit anything from her except like gruesome, gory, morbid crimes and violence and type stuff. So that's kind of where she starts, and then she returns home to where she lives in Massachusetts, and long story short, the depression continues to develop, and you kind of follow her through treatment and then a bunch of other stuff, which I won't get into right here. So that's basically what the Bell Jar is about. But like I mentioned, oh yeah, the Sally Paxton. Like I mentioned in my last video, one of the big metaphors here, just one of the things Sylvia Plath does well is describing what it's like to be be someone suffering from depression. In other words, to see what it's like on the inside of the bell jar. And the bell jar is just one of many metaphors that Sylvia Plath talks about, where it's this glass jar that sort of can close in over something and suck up all the air. It's this airless, suffocating, stifling place where you're completely detached from the world. And she has a quote where she says, "To the person in the bell jar, blank and stopped as a dead baby, the world itself is a bad dream," something like that. So just, some really vivid imagery like that. She has another one too. She said, talking about how she's scared, bro. Like when this is happening to her, and she finds it scary. She says it was like being stuffed further and further and further into a black airless sack, and there was no way out. So just really kind of intense stuff like that. Depicting what it's like to be someone in the bell jar, to be someone who is suffering from this very real clinical depression. So there's that aspect, but she also talks about, I think, a more subtle approach or depiction of depression, where it's not just like the sad helplessness, the fatigue, the apathy. It's not just that stuff. It's also like low-key, like she's suffering from like perceptual and cognitive difficulties, to the point where it's like, there's one point, long story short, she needs to like call somebody. In fact, she wants to at a high level. It's like this opportunity that if she doesn't do it today, she's gonna miss it, and it could be very good for her health and everything, her mental health and everything. So she's like, okay, I want to call them. And what she does is, so she like reaches for the phone, and then she says her hand goes limp, bro. It's just like, And then she's kind of like watching it like from third person, like she's watching her hand going limp and being like, oh dang, that's crazy. And then she's like, okay, let's try again. And it goes, and then it goes limp again. And she says like it's running up against a pane of glass. So like low-key losing control of her body. And then like on top of that, things like there's a part where she's working on her thesis, and she's trying to write, and she says it comes out in these big sprawling letters, and it looks like loops of string are just like all up on the page, like literally not able to write, bro. Like, so there's that. And then she's like, okay, well, I guess I'll try and read. So she's reading the book she's supposed to be doing for her thesis, and she says the words got all tangled up like barbed wire and completely incomprehensible. So it's like it's not just like the feelings of sadness, it's like a real clinical affliction to be suffering from. So and that's something that I have not seen from any other book. To Sylvia Plath's credit, I haven't seen that done anywhere else, and all depiction in all its different forms that I've seen it, I've never seen something like that. But anyway, so there's that. And then not helping the situation all is the fact that she is a woman with aspiration and dreams in the like 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever. It's all the same to me. Like the mid 19th century or whatever, 20th century. I hate that how that's a thing, but I'm not. Anyway, women at this time play very secondary and subservient roles, which like I talked about in the video. It's like they basically are just there to serve their husbands. And oh, I didn't even say this, bro. Sylvia Plath has, in the book, Esther Greenwood is this, I was about to say, she's like this super smart person, super talented, super creative. She likes writing poetry. She has big aspirations, big dreams, stuff like that. But Sylvia Plath in real life, bro, she had an IQ of 160. which is extremely high. And I was like, just for reference, bro, I'm like, what is Einstein's IQ? And Einstein had an IQ of 160. So like they had like the same. I didn't look super hard, but point is, Sylvia Plath was actually like ridiculous, stupid smart. But anyway, you put someone like that in the time that Sylvia Plath was writing in, and my bad, my dog was making noise. But you take Sylvia Plath and you put her in this time period, someone so as brilliant as her in this time period, and in the book, Esther Greenwood is like really hesitant, like she really does not want to get married. But her whole family is expecting to. The person she's like kind of with, but low-key doesn't even like, his whole family is expecting her to. He's expecting to. There's just a complete societal expectation of Esther to do it. But she knows, she has this sort of like nightmare vision of it, because she's like, okay, I already know the second I get married, I'm gonna have to wake up at 7 a.m. to cook my husband eggs and toast and coffee and bacon. And while he goes to have this awesome, lively day, she's gonna have to watch the kids. She's gonna have to clean the house. She's gonna have to do all the chores. And of course, after he's had his big, exciting day, he's gonna come back home, expect a big breakfast. So she has to cook. And like once the breakfast's done, once the dinner's done, she's gonna have to put away all the dishes, put the kids to bed, and next thing you know, she's exhausted. And it's you know, the day is over. The idea being that they are there to serve. And you know, that, I guess that kind of sounds a little strong. And I will say too, all of this is not heavy-handed at all. It just comes out very naturally and organically through the narrative and through the story. But yeah, that's just, I think, on Sylvia Plath's part, a critique of the time period of, like, I was about to say the patriarchy, something like that. So okay, I'm gonna end it, or not end it, but I'm gonna go to my review now, which might seem a little underwhelming, and we're going to talk about it. But I give this book, honestly, like anywhere from like a B-. I don't want to say C+, because I think this book definitely is in the B range, but you know, on the lower end, I guess. And the reason for that is, okay, so just at like a surface level, just like, I thought the plot was like a little disjointed, where it's like, you know, the people and things that were happening in the first part of the book didn't really connect much with the other people and things happening in the second part and the third book. It was like, just, it felt scattered, felt disjointed. So there's that. But honestly, even a bigger aspect, my problem with the story was, at the endish part of this book, there's like a turning point, and I'm not going to elaborate on what that means, but there's this turning point, and it just kind of comes out of nowhere. It doesn't involve any growth or transformation or anything on Esther's part. It just kind of comes out and shifts the whole kind of story in the paradigm. So it didn't feel, like I said, it just felt a little unsatisfying at the end of it. I felt like there was something left unresolved with Esther. But on top of that, like, I mean, that's it. That's like basically my issues. But I want to caveat all that with the saying, like, bro, for one, this was Sylvia Plath's first novel. She had done a lot of poetry, and this was her first novel. And a lot of really good, coveted authors today, their first novels were very mediocre. And this book was not mediocre. This book was good, and there was a lot of promise in it. You can see. My problem was more so with the mechanics of the story than her ability as a writer. So there's that. I just, like, again, and in light of the antidepressant thing, like, I can't just, like, could you imagine where Sylvia, she wrote one novel and it's as famous as it is today. Could you imagine where she's at by novel 4 or novel 5? Like, I just think it was a real loss to art and to literature. But anyway, so there's that. And not to mention too, obviously she was in the throes of a depression, and she took her own life. Well, sorry, spoiler, but it's all right. It's not that deep, bro. But she took her own life a month after the publication, and we knew that she had been suffering from depression for a very long time. It was also like the coldest winter in 100 years. She was just not good, and she wrote The Bell Jar kind of all in this, I think, pretty short chunk of time, like maybe over a few months. And I know she made very little revisions to it, so I think that had a part to do with it. But yeah, man, it's just, I don't know. I think it's a real tragedy. Because could you imagine when for all the beef I talk about with poetry, I do like poetic writing. Like, if you had Sylvia Plath have her ability in poems and integrate that with a novel form, bro, that would be amazing. But anyway, we're gonna end it on that note. Not the most upbeat of Big Nate's book reviews, but anyway, real quick though, follow me on Instagram at Big Nate's book reviews, and follow me on Goodreads, link in the description, a bunch of other stuff in the description, and thank you for watching Big Nate's book reviews, home of the best book reviews.